Alright, hello. I'm here on Lucky Thing A15B, and I finished a sort of review with, I think, 3 invite players, and I figured each one of the videos, recordings, interviews, is about 50 minutes long, so a little bit under 3 hours, a little bit lengthy. I figured I'd try my hand at making a TLDW, uh, Too Long Didn't Watch, and hopefully we'll see if I can cut that down within, I don't know, about an hour and I guess we'll see how I do. And with the time limit in mind, why don't I just get into it? So I think one of the big things or notes that I have in comparing a pub map to a kind of Highlander style competitive format is um, you really never wipe on a point. There's no concept of like wiping in Highlander, or at least it's not really, you really shouldn't be wiping. It's you lose numbers, maybe you lose a valuable pick, maybe you lose ad, and you retreat to the next kind of hold. What that means is no matter how good a hold is, it probably won't really see any use at all if there's no clean retreat. You never want a hold where you kind of like start to lose and then you're caught retreating as well. And that's kind of one of the big things about this area here, I'd say, where it looks like there's some nice platforms that players kind of want to play around, but look at the exit route, right? You kind of have to commit forward into this choke. You're going forward into the enemy team, into this nasty choke with a huge sightline, and then you back out even further into the sightline. So this area wouldn't really see much use, or at least I really don't see it being popular. And if we just fly over to the opposite side, um, you kind of have a similar thing going on here where you have a hold, or not a hold, but some area where you expect to get maybe some spam, maybe watch a trap, and then you want to rotate out this way, but oh, what's that? A sniper sight line, right? And that's one I think it's kind of a pattern that it kind of repeats itself quite a few times on the map where there's a hold where players seem like they want to, it's kind of intended for players to hold the position, but then a sniper sight line really breaks it. Alright, so the general impression amongst all the competitive players was that this front area was basically unholdable. Anywhere behind these kind of two chokes, or anywhere in front of them rather, wouldn't really see any sort of play at all. And I think one of the big things towards that was one of them mentioned if it is intentionally designed to kind of be like an area like that, like you don't add a door there so that they can rotate out, then it might be a good idea to make the cart track not as lengthy because the way it kind of like wraps, someone said it was kind of like it's artificial lengthening in a way, where there is going to be essentially cart jockeys, right? You're going to have your rest of the team is going to be aggressive. They're going to completely ignore the cart because they can just have ×3 on the cart with like their engineer and their scout, and those players will just be relegated to pushing the cart while the rest of the team is actually making a push. So just if you care about the little guy, in that case, it might be a good idea to just cut the cart track length a little bit. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the first kind of real hold that players saw, because as I mentioned, that hold there was kind of like unpopular. Nobody really thought they could hold there. So positionally, I'm just going to place some statues here. People thought the first hold might look something like this. So engineer might have a gun there, and you'd have a combo, and this is a really popular concept in competitive. Oops, let me get rid of that. Where you essentially have a combo, which is going to be your demo, pyro, heavy, and your medic, kind of playing in the same area, kind of watching the same choke. And then you have your flank, which is typically your soldier scout, with your scout kind of being ready to rotate. So your combo would kind of hold this door, and your flank would kind of hold here, watching kind of like for the rotation. And let's see, what am I missing here? Uh, I guess the sniper sight line, and I already mentioned gun there. So I think one of the really big deals here is this kind of felt like where people wanted to hold, and pretty much unanimously they said like, this is just a soft hold, and you wouldn't be able to hold this concretely. And a big reason for that is this sniper sight line, because this sniper sight line really forces your entire combo to play scared. One of the big things about sniper sightlines is, well, I mean, they're not fun to deal with simply as a player, and especially in competitive, when you're dealing with very high-level snipers, they don't miss too frequently. At least you shouldn't be playing hoping they miss. So this combo would not really be able to hold this choke because they never really be able to peek, and essentially you would boil into an SVS, where there's a sniper in the sightline, one of the snipers wins the duel, and the other team, maybe even off that, is just ready to leave. But definitely, from this sightline, where you have a sniper literally sniping from spawn. There's nothing a spy can do. There's absolutely no risk to this player. In general, it's already unfun for the other 8 classes when there's a long sniper sight line because it's a class that none of other players can fight against. So I think a lot of players thought this sight line definitely needs to be closed for this hold to be feasible at all. And even this hold, it has kind of the same problem from before, where say you're playing your medic here, right, and then you need to leave. You can't. There, it feels like there should be a kind of like a door or escape route here. Oh my god. Random's joining my LAN server. It feels like there should be an escape route here, but instead you kind of have to commit forward and leave or rotate this way, and even then it exposes you to a lot more sightlines where they could push in or At least it's kind of like a lengthy rotate, where it feels like there's not a clean way to kind of back out. Instead, you kind of have to like commit in a little bit to back out, which is a little scary, and it means the hold is kind of like more tenuous. But anyway, this was kind of like a soft hold. And then if we back out a little bit, so we maybe lost a bit of numbers, we're backing into this hold inside the house, and we're trying to see what we can get done here. Oh, I should have probably mentioned here as well. Before I move on the flank side of things, the general feeling was you can't really hold this very well as a flank just because that sightline exists. Again, you're just going to get pressure from main that your combo can't really rotate to help out, and you're just going to have a sniper standing there that these two players are literally just helpless against. They can't do anything against that sniper sightline. They can't help pressure this because players from main will help damage them. And you kind of have the same issue here where the combo back here can't really do anything about the high ground. But in any case, if we rotate back inside this sort of building, um, I would say one of the big kind of takeaways was there wasn't really good position for a gun spot. Players kept trying to find something like, oh no, this spot would be spammed from main. Oh no, this spot would get spammed from there. And then on the right side, there isn't really any feasible thing either. And it's like, okay, well, at least where would your combo play? It's like, okay, maybe behind this sheet. But again, you have the same kind of deal here where there's a dangerous sightline I have to cross before I can get out. And in this case, I just mentioned before, when you're holding in Highlander, typically you don't wipe on a point, so you typically have a clean retreat. But remember those flank members I had over here? So the Soldier Scout, their card pushes in, they're starting to push in here. I want to leave. Oh no, the gate's closed. So what's the closest way to leave? I have to drop down here, but they're already pushing the card. So it creates a very awkward sense of I want to leave, but there's a gate in my way. So I think this is probably, I would say this is a little bit more pub-informed design. We don't really want people going backwards. You kind of want people staying in the fight. But in Highlander, you should assume that people kind of know, either from experience or intuition, when to leave. And this is kind of getting in the way of that, where it's like, okay, well, they're pushing quite hard. They have that choke there. I need to leave and reset with my team, but I can't. I have to go through this kind of awkward choke. I have to expose myself to his sightlines. And that's kind of the same deal with the combo here, where the combo kind of has to leave dropping towards the choke where they might be flooding in. I kind of want to get away. I want to back out. I want to set up for another hold. And I definitely don't want to have to do something like this. So definitely maybe enable a kind of a bit more of a clean retreat, and I think that's a really important takeaway. Besides that, this general feeling was that this is too exposed. This entire building is kind of too exposed. You would normally think like a building means you could kind of have a chance at a hold, but a lot of these doorways and a lot of these sightlines mean there's pretty much nowhere safe to stand behind this little cover piece, and you don't have enough pressure or ability to watch the card here. So you would probably have to not even soft hold that, just give it up. So we had one soft hold in the front, and then we sort of gave it up here. All right, so moving on to the next point, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to open the shutters. There we go. And let's talk about the next sort of soft hold that I had going on. So there's a little bit of an opinion that you might be able to play something like your combo behind here. So again, those classes, and then maybe an engineer back here, and then you would probably have your flank play on the left side, because combo plays one side, flank typically plays the other. So for now, let's just say here, although this isn't quite right, maybe soldier up here would be better. The same thought here kind of applies where it's difficult to peek main because of long sniper sight line, so you wouldn't really ever have control of that side. And interestingly enough, because I know the way this kind of played in pubs, this room was largely unimportant because what you really want to take control of is high ground on the right. So as soon as these players are pressured out, either by the sniper or other means, because there's no real way to kind of peek this guy, then the demo kind of gets space, or any class really would get up space here, and from here you have a really powerful spam angle that's going to splash everything there, and it just kind of means the hold there can't exist any longer as soon as this high ground is lost. So a very, very soft hold, if anything, just ready to retreat out as soon as you lose control of the high ground. And then moving on to the next point, I think, so it was incredible because 3 players individually decided that this was kind of like the position to take here with the sentry gun. And along with that, you kind of have a question of, well, where's your combo? Where's your flank? And I think the general feeling was there's nowhere to stand as either. A lot of teams, actually dissenting opinions. One team tried to place their combo in here, one team tried to place their flank in there, but either way they felt that this door was a little bit too difficult to commit out. It's too tiny, and what happens is if you try to rotate to help your team, and their demo is already on main, even with this giant high ground here, he's just going to stuff that really easily. So even with the close spawn, a lot of players felt that this area just kind of felt poor. I think this back flank area people thought was a little bit too wide. They wanted it compressed a little bit. And then they noted, I think, this sniper sightline for the defending sniper. And then as a general thought, this entire area is a little bit congested, you wouldn't really be able to peek this corner because of that sniper sight line. Because again, Highlander players are very cautious about sniper sight lines because you're dealing with snipers who are very good, and you just don't want to challenge them if you can avoid it. So anyway, with the gun back here, you kind of have a combo or flank in here that again kind of has a really awkward rotation out. Like how are they supposed to leave? They have to cross through this sight line or out this tiny door, right? So it kind of means that entire blockhouse is cut off. If you are playing your combo in there, it's kind of like, well, if we lose this, we're going to wipe, and that is just really unappealing to Highlander players. They really want to have a kind of clean retreat out of a lot of these areas, and this area, at least, I think the big takeaway would be it feels congested. They can't really hold the chokes as much as they'd like because there's kind of a lot of prop spam. That sounds mean, but there's kind of a lot of props are there's not really a great sightline into the choke. They kind of have to play out these awkward chokes or down these awkward slopes. Alright, so moving on, I think on the way to third was the first time I think two of the players noted the length of the cart track, where they said, this cart track feels quite long. And again, this is a point I just want to reiterate, which is kind of the difference between a little bit of comp and more like pub testing, where in pubs it's relatively common for your entire team to wipe trying to hold a point. But in comp, since that wouldn't really happen, what it typically looks like is teams are constantly retreating to the next kind of hold that they consider. So there is at least two players did consider what I would call an intermediary hold. So the point for C is back there, but rather than hold on it, there was some talk about trying to hold kind of like in this, like I just said, intermediary area. So it might look something like that, typically with a sniper back here, and then a flank just playing around over here. And this kind of seems like a decent hold because the spawns are about equal. You're meeting them out on low ground here, and they can't really do anything to stop this demo. There's no really great sightline besides that one, which you can also spam. The big deal to kind of break this would probably be getting your sniper in from the flank and winning, again, a sort of SVS. So this is kind of like a decent range where maybe some spam can come across, but for the most part, this is just a sniper versus sniper battle. And as soon as the defending sniper loses, right, so my attacking sniper, I land my headshot, fortunately, this red team is now put in a very awkward situation of leaving, because they can't leave in through main, right? So if they're trying to hold this, they would stay in this corner, but it really wouldn't really be wise. Once again, the sniper has the entire team's exit. This area feels like it should be safe, like I'm out here, but actually even from up there, I tested it, you can snipe people's feet kind of climbing up this ramp, and that's one of the things you really have to pay attention to, the sniper sight lines for capturing the exit, because once again, I'm reiterating here, but it is kind of the theme, where red team wants to hold somewhere, but because there's a sniper sight line that has their escape, they can't really hold this area, or it isn't really feasible. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to third. And I think third was probably the point that was most unanimously liked. And it was also thought that this is the first kind of hard hold that kind of exists for red. And the hold would look something like this. Again, we're just going to throw down our classes here. Oops. And I think the most awkward thing that people said was that this area here to the right next to the boiler didn't really feel convenient. This area back here felt very awkward to play around, and a lot of players, I think two players commented out that you can actually get your feet sniped from this catwalk. They felt like it should be kind of more of a safe area to deal with. I think a big takeaway from this, for me at least, was that the demo standing here can spam all three doors. He can spam that way, and he has a great sightline there, and spam that way, and spam that way. And just as a quick note here, this isn't super important, but I'd be a little cautious about giving free vision kind of like this. For starters, it really helps the defenders because they can see what's kind of in there, but also it kind of removes complexity from the game because you're already having a spy, kind of usually an intel spy, feed intel on where their combo is going, who's pushing what, and this kind of takes away from that because you don't really need to have a person calming like, hey, their combo's rotating left. It's kind of, I can see that, and I have like a good 3 or 4 second warning where I can stuff it. So it's just a thought. Besides that, this hold, I think one of the key takeaways was that there is a lot of sniper sightline here, and the sniper sightline basically blocks the cross completely, and you can play from either up here or up here. Either way, he stops the attacking team from being able to rotate. A lot of players thought that they should take the combo, shove the flank here. A lot of players were concerned about pyro air blasting off, and they're like, okay, yeah, that seems like it'd be really risky to take the combo here, because if the pyro is here, you can just shut all of you down. But yeah, a lot of players thought like you probably need to get your sniper or maybe a soldier in to spam out the gun like that, or have your sniper win the sort of SVS here in the tunnel. Once again, kind of like one of these long sight lines. And then once they rotate in, have your combo try to pressure out the kind of left like this. There's a little bit of thought about adding a doorway here because players felt awkward that they had to cross quite a dangerous sightline to get over into the boiler, which again is just low ground over the high ground. So it's a lot of work for not a lot of reward here. Managing to work your way all the way in, only to have like a, a high ground advantage kind of like over you. But yeah, I think that was kind of the main thoughts about the point here. All right, so moving on, kind of like to the fourth point. All three competitive players I asked actually spotted out what they thought might be a potential intermediary hold here. So we're talking, once again, your combo classes here, and then your soldier maybe up top, your sniper somewhere back here, and then your scout maybe watching the one flank route. The big deal here is there's a kind of two choke going on, but I think, again, you kind of have the same kind of idea here. This is a forward hold that players want to hold in, that the defending team was kind of like, okay, yes, this looks like a corner that we can maybe take advantage of. Oh, sorry, I forgot, like gun here or something. But the danger is, once again, the sniper sight line. And once a sniper commits in main here, he can kind of see quite far back, and once he's up on that balcony, he has all these players exit. As a medic, you can't leave here without him seeing you. Even if you hug this wall, you could be on that ramp there. If you go further back, then you're exposing yourself to even the big doorway. So it's just kind of, I think one of the words someone said was, it feels like it's sniper playing the game, and then you kind of have 8 spectators when you kind of have a long sniper sight line. It's just no one else can fight that sniper besides the sniper, and then once your sniper loses the fight, you don't really have a reason to kind of hold this area, or you kind of have to play really passive for at least until he comes up, and that's just not fun because you can't even peek this at all. Their players are just going to take all the space, and then you're even cornered in this spot. So I think players kind of maybe wanted another exit route, but also really just wanted kind of the sniper sightlines shut down. As for this general area, I think let's talk about the hold first, and I'll kind of talk about pushing it. There was some talk about maybe trying a forward hold on some of the spaces, but I think what it generally boiled down to is players thinking that combo would play roughly on this ramp, um, and then a gun going here, or maybe back here wrangled, um, and the flank kind of scout soldier playing down there, or maybe a little bit closer here to the left. I would say the big takeaway that I heard was it's not fun to deal with this large sightline because any sniper back there, or even just on the tracks, would be capable of sniping kind of like across. So again, you never really commit your combo if there's a risk of the sniper existing. These rotation routes, they're very, very long, and this one can be spotted quite easily. But that kind of means if you're pressured out, it takes forever to rotate back. It's a little annoying to deal with such a large rotation. The other thing is players thought it would just be really easy to walk through main. So a demo player in particular commented on the fact that it would only take 1 or 2 stickies to spam everyone out in that choke, and then once that's done, he could just walk up main and continue to spam. He would stay down here tipping to spam while his combo, the rest of his combo at least, would rotate up, have this high ground control, and once they have this high ground control, the last would basically be won, because from this point, the entire red team is stuffed into a sort of corner. They give up way too much space, and they don't have high ground control either. And there's a huge sightline back there as well, which the attacking team can take advantage of. Their sniper can work their way all the way in and kind of like snipe down like this, or rotate right and snipe any of those areas. And the soldier as well can just kind of like spam. Direct hits probably spam a sentry, which could be in a gap here or anything. So for the most part, I tried to get a little bit more opinions on the flank, but people thought that because this catwalk is kind of so tiny, and because that a lot of sightline pressure exists kind of like from the main. Once again, that player, if we had a player on balcony here, there would be no way for this player to fight against the sniper all the way back here, who has a great sightline, or even can just peek anything like this, so like he's barely ahead, or even just like this. So it's just too many sight lines for a sniper to be able to head peek from that you really can't do anything about. It means the combo once again has to play scared, and they're not able to hold any space, but he just takes that space as soon as one of the snipers, as soon as the enemy sniper is dead, and then the last is kind of one off that. So Highlander is generally a very sniper-centric game mode, but I do think this map in particular takes it to a sort of extreme, and I think a lot of that is because the sniper has a lot of the escapes. The other part of it is just because the sightlines are simply too long. I don't really have good advice for closing a lot of sightlines. I think my best advice would probably be to just go through and see like, hey, is there really any way of breaking any of these sightlines, making it so that the sniper really has to put himself at a little bit more of a risk to get an angle that he wants to peek. Because in Highlander, the game mode is a lot of playing around your sniper. And in this case, there's not really that much need for protection for your sniper because he isn't really peeking anything. I would say this top right is probably the best example of, okay, here's a room where a sniper sightline he wants to peek this, but it's a tough room because it can be spammed and he kind of has a back wall dividing him. I think this is a good example of a sightline where it's like it's so long, it captures an exit, and there's really no way to pressure this guy at all. So yeah, definitely be careful about that. I think in terms of comp viability, I think all the competitive players kind of had the impression that it feels a little bit more like a pub map. I think a large part of that was the cart track. The other part of it was the kind of excessive sniper sightlines. So I'd say those two are probably the biggest takeaways as for areas. And just to reiterate once again, I think the first point and second point both had soft holds where players didn't really think they were holdable. Third was the first hard holdable point, and I think all the players kind of unanimously enjoyed it, where they thought the design was quite interesting. And I think the fourth point kind of had conflicting opinions, but in general, there was unanimous agreement that it wasn't as good of a hold as third. All right, I think I'm going to cut the video there. Thanks for listening.